Exactly 1 year to the day since Eddie Howe was appointed Newcastle manager. Howe took over with Newcastle 19th in the Premier League. Fast forward a year, they're now third. The Newcastle boss has just been speaking at a news conference ahead of tomorrow's EFL Cup tie against Crystal Palace. Let's hear what he's had to say.
Firstly, how is Callum Wilson?
Yeah, Callum's okay. He's been feeling an illness for a few days, so a little bit run down. We'll see how he is again today.
And Kieran Trippier, you spoke after the match at Southampton and you suggested he was fine. Is that the case?
Yeah, we think so. No problems with Kieran. I think always looks probably more than it is when a physio comes onto the pitch, but he came out second half, he was fine. And as I said, it was my decision to take him off.
Has anyone else picked up an injury since the weekend?
Not as far as I know, Razor, no.
With the game against Crystal Palace then, will you be looking at potentially freshening things up and making some changes, given that you've had quite a busy Premier League schedule and also you've got a lot of players who are eager to play?
Yeah, I think we've got a combination of a few situations. We've got a lot of players that are eager to play and show their qualities. We do have a number of games this week. Very tight turnaround, 6 days, 3 games. So we'll try and make the right call for the team while acknowledging that we are desperate to progress in the competition and we want to do well in it. So I've got to make those choices and get that balance of the team right.
Could it be an opportunity for someone like Elliot Anderson, who started at Tranmere in the previous round and came on late on at the weekend? Yeah,
he'd be one of a number of players pushing. I think when you look at the squad we picked for Southampton, and you look to the lads that didn't start, there's a lot of quality there. A lot of players have done very well historically in the team. So I've got no doubt about their ability to come in and do well if given the opportunity. So I think it's a great position for me to be in.
You just touched on it there and you made reference to it on Sunday after the match, the importance of the League Cup to you this season. Clearly that hasn't changed. Given how well things have gone for you in the league, you still want to have a good cup run? Yeah,
it doesn't change. The league form is, of course, so important to us as well, but we want to do well in the cups. In every competition we enter, we want to try and give the best representation of ourselves. I said very early days here that my dream is to try and win something for Newcastle, and that hasn't changed.
There's going to be a sellout crowd at St James's Park. It'll be a club record for a home match in this competition, which I think says everything about the appetite that there is for watching you at the moment. But after such a memorable first half of the season, is it nice to be at home this week with 2 big games to hopefully keep your supporters, make them happy and finish on a high before the World Cup?
Yeah, I think naturally when you go into the cup draw, first thing you want is a home tie. So we're always so proud to play in front of our own supporters, and I think when you have a quick turnaround, the 3 games in 6 days, the fact we've got the next 2 at home is a big lift for us.
And finally, Crystal Palace, you've already played them once at St James's Park this season. They had a good win, a big win at the weekend late on. What do you make of the way that they have performed this season and how things may or may not have changed for them since you played them in the Premier League?
Yeah, I don't think too much has changed since that game. I think they very well coached team. I think they've slowly but surely changed the philosophy of play. I think now you see a team that consistently plays up from the back. They've got a clear method in their build-up. Very good, talented players, very dangerous players in the forward areas. So I think Patrick's done a brilliant job. I think he continues to improve the team, and we know it'll be a tough game.
Thank you. Thanks, Rudy. Nick?
Eddie, today marks your official first-year anniversary at the club. Congratulations. I wonder if we can just rewind briefly. 12 months ago, did you ever envisage that the club would be in this run of form? What was the one area that you looked at instantly and thought that has to change if results are going to pick up? And what in your mind did you believe was achievable and realistic at that stage to where you are now?
Quite a few questions. Thank you. Thank you for the anniversary nod there. Yeah, I feel like I've been answering these questions for a couple of weeks now, but I think taking myself back, it was very much we knew we were in a big fight to stay in the league, and I think when you know you're coming into that situation, I think there's a few fundamental things you need the team to deliver, and I think one of them was really, really good emphasis on our training and our training performances then morphing into how we played. So we wanted to be really solid. We wanted to try and improve our defensive record. And that came down to really drilling the players on the training pitch, and their attitude to that work from day one, as I've said many times, was so good. And I think that was where we tried to put all our emphasis into the work, because we felt we had players that were capable at the other end of scoring goals. We just needed to try and solidify the team, really.
You made a pledge also, and you've already stressed today, Eddie, to have a real go at the cup competitions. How important is it that the players try and marry their Premier League form by going deep into the Carabao Cup, the FA Cup to come, of course?
Yeah, I think it is a mentality. I think it's when you play any game, I think you've got to get the mindset right. You've got to have everybody that's involved in the game with the same mindset that we want to win, we want to progress, and we're ambitious, and that we can dream, and we can dream big. So that's what I've tried to encourage at the football club, and I've got to say that the players have embraced that, and I think they would mirror my thoughts. There's no dead games here. It's that every competition is huge, and we want to try and do as well as we can.
Could be a big week also for a number of Newcastle players with regard to the England World Cup squad announcement. Callum Wilson, Kieran Trippier, maybe even and Dan Burnett. I mean, how nice a reward would it be for them from a club perspective with that announcement due, and as part of the club's journey that they're on as well?
Yeah, I mean, I want my players to fulfil all their dreams and ambitions, and it's such a delicate thing, because you know that it's in the hands of obviously the managers of the national teams, and I know from speaking on behalf of managers, it's very difficult when you have those decisions to make, and you're going to disappoint some people. It's a really strange week, really, not something I've not experienced before, where you have a World Cup selection during sort of a busy spell of games. So I'm sure a lot of the players will be looking at what's going to happen this week, while obviously focusing on the games that we have short term, because very quick turnaround, as I've said. So a lot of emotions, I'm sure, flying around, but hopefully for our respective players, they hopefully they can get called up. I want all of them to do as well as they can.
Lots of Eddie Howe there. Michael Bridges is with me, and we're going to talk about England's World Cup squad announcement a little later. But let's get to Newcastle, shall we? Amazing, really. A year to the day since Eddie Howe took charge. Sum up for us just how far he has taken them.
Well, it's funny, on Friday, Antonio Conte asked me if he thought he'd aged. Should Eddie Howe think he's aged? Because it's been some first year, hasn't it? It's easy to forget that when Eddie Howe took over Newcastle, we were talking about Newcastle as a club that potentially could get relegated. They were in a bit of trouble. I mean, have a look at this here, Rob. I mean, this is where Newcastle United were when Eddie Howe took over. We just couldn't. I mean, you ask any Newcastle fan, I remember speaking to a few Newcastle fans, they'd have taken fourth bottom. And what a turnaround it was. Now, this is something for Newcastle fans to enjoy. Have a look at this. This is where Newcastle would be if the season started when Eddie Howe took over the club. They are right near the top. Well, they are near the top of the Premier League. Graphic not working at the moment, but yeah, cheers. But you can see here, look, Burnley Norwich Championship. Newcastle ended up finishing mid-table in the end. They've become a serious club, and we talk about the Big Six, and a lot of clubs outside the Big Six hate that term, don't they? But you have to say Newcastle are the club that are knocking on the door. And also, what a chance this year of winning a trophy, because we talk about the Carabao Cup coming in. There's so many games to come after the World Cup. They're not in Europe. The one club near the top who aren't in Europe, could that be a key for success in the league and domestically?
Sorry, I was just got to pick up that name you dropped there.
It's anniversaries.
When I was talking to Antonio Conte. Right, OK. For all the talk of investment, have they been smart in the transfer window?
I think when they had the takeover, everyone expected scattergun and what can they sign? They can sign anyone. And they're obviously very defensive, and they're very quick to say, look, we have a plan. We have financial fair play in place as well. But let's have a look at their January signings. And it all kicked off. Yes, this works. Get in. Right, it all kicked off, Rob. Kieran Trippier, what a signing he's become. Probably going to be in the starting lineup for Gareth Southgate's England in a couple of weeks. And he's had the captain's armband for Newcastle. He's been a fantastic signing. You'd say Chris Wood, probably not as great as Newcastle would have hoped or expected, but then he scored on Sunday, so he's still around. This is the signing for me. This player, Bruno Guimaraes, could probably play for any team in the Premier League. He's a really, really good player, phenomenal midfielder. Will probably be in the Brazil team for the World Cup as well. So that was a really top signing, and sort of a bit of an eye-opener, that one, because obviously Newcastle was still near the bottom at the time, but this guy is a different level, a real class act. Matty Targett, that loan went permanent. That's gone well at left back, left wing back. And Dan Burn, what a signing he's been from Brighton, a Newcastle fan as a boy. He's been playing left back last few games as well at the moment, but a real top signing he's been as well. And he might be watching Sky Sports News on Thursday, potential. Is it maybe a little bit too late to go into Gareth Southgate's squad? I don't know, but he's been a real success as well. So let's flip it to the summer signings. Can we do that? Yes, we're going well now. So Targett's loan went well. They signed him permanently. Now, Nick Pope, permanent deal, £10 million. Not a bad deal that was. So he's Newcastle's number one. Sven Botman, someone they wanted last January. They were up head-to-head against AC Milan. He ended up going to Newcastle United, and he's one of the first names on Eddie Howe's team sheet at the moment. Started on the bench a few times, but he's looking really good now. Alexander Isak, now he's suffered an injury, but already in the first few games when he did play, you can see the class there. He's been unfortunate with an injury, but he'll have the World Cup to sort of recuperate and get back for the Christmas games for Newcastle United. But as I say, the little bits you've seen there of him playing for Newcastle, you know he's going to be a good signing as well. And obviously, Newcastle United fans will be glued to our channel in January with our transfer shows, because as much as they'll play it down, they will look to strengthen again and go again in January.
Yeah, OK. So that's the signings. But there are already players who were at the club. And maybe the test of a good manager, a good coach, is how you develop what you have.
So this has to be said with Newcastle United. It's not just about the new signings we mentioned. I can imagine Newcastle fans at home at the moment going, no, but it's not about those players. They've helped for sure. But you look at the likes of Joe Linton, who arrived at Newcastle as a striker, one of the first names on the team sheet as a midfielder now. Fabian Schär, Sean Longstaff, Joe Willock, Jacob Murphy. I'm missing a few out here, but I'll tell you I'm not going to miss out on Miguel Almiron. What a story. Been one of the best players of the season for Newcastle United. He's been an absolute revelation. He's become a crowd favourite, but for all the right reasons as well, because the goals he's scoring, and he's not letting it up, he's still scoring these goals. What a key player he's become for Newcastle United. So we have to stress that, yes, Newcastle have made signings. The feel-good factor around the club is completely different. Everyone's smiling, everyone's happy. But it isn't just about the arrivals, because Eddie Howe laid on a challenge to the current players and they've taken it on. So, yeah, he's the story for me of Newcastle United, and he outlines what the current crop have done. They've raised levels like, oh, you're a new signing, are you? I want to keep my place. So, yeah, good times ahead for Eddie Howe.
Yeah, and doing an Almiron now has a whole happier context.
Absolutely.
Doesn't it?
Absolutely.
OK.